had anybody in a meeting or workshop that you feel is actively trying to sabotage you? It is an awful, awful feeling. In this video today, I'm going to share with you exactly what to do in that type of situation and also what to do to avoid that situation altogether. Let's go! We are recording. Oh, Gordo, look at the camera. Up there. Oh, there you go. If you're new to my channel, maybe consider subscribing if you're interested in tips and tricks on workshops and facilitation and all that kind of stuff. My dog is eating my carpet. Gordon, just let him get away with so much because he's so freaking cute. So before I get started, I'd love to know what's the most difficult situation you've ever come across in a meeting or a workshop. Tell me the story, or at least a couple of tidbits about it down in the comments. So there are a lot of ways that people can be disruptive in a workshop or meeting environment. They can be disengaged, they can actively be trying to sabotage you, they can just be not really paying a lot of attention. In all of these scenarios, I have tangible tips on what you can actively do in the moment. But first, before I give you those, I'm gonna tell you how to set yourself up to avoid these difficult situations altogether. So before your workshop or meeting even starts, you're gonna do two things that are gonna help you avoid any kind of problematic people that might be just waiting and lurking to jump out at you. Just kidding, they don't really jump usually, they're just sort of disruptive. So scratch that. So the first thing that you're gonna do is you are going to get and set expectations. It's so important that people understand why we're in this room together, what we're going to do together. You're gonna make it really super clear. That way in the future, when you're actually doing your workshop or the activity, people are already expecting it, so they're not gonna be questioning it as much. That is super key. And the second one that might seem a little silly but is so helpful is you are going to set some rules of play. And this is really important because people, humans, need rules. We need to know what's expected of us and what's not expected of us.
Rules are good. Rules help control the fun.
We need to know what's allowed and what's not allowed. That makes people feel safe and comfortable, and likely they won't be disruptive if you've literally told them exactly how they should behave in the situation. So, what are your rules? Do you want everybody to turn their devices off or put their devices away? Do you want everybody to pay attention and contribute, right? It's really important that you tell people that you need their contributions. That way they know that you're expecting that. If you're remote, maybe you want everybody's cameras to be on. Maybe you want everybody's mics to be muted. Tell them what you need in order for this workshop session to be a success. And last but not least, you're gonna get everybody to agree. So you're gonna set your expectations, you're gonna present your rules, and then you're literally gonna say, does that sound okay for everybody? Can you give me a thumbs up if you're all good on that? Literally, this is the key, because once they've agreed, if anything happens kind of down the line, you're able to literally say, oh, hey, guys, I noticed that a lot of you have your cameras off. Remember that one of the rules is that you should actively try to have your camera on. So I just wanted to throw that reminder out there. Now you're not really reprimanding, you're just reminding, which is a much nicer role to play as a facilitator. Okay, now we're gonna tackle some active situations. So things that are actually happening and what to do in the moment if they arise. Firstly, if people are not listening, it's kind of very obvious, especially when you're in the same room together, whether people are listening to you or not. But also you can figure that out in a remote situation as well, right? If you notice that you're sort of like seeing people's eyes wander around their screen, maybe you ask a question and literally no one seems to be able to answer you, that is probably a sign that people aren't paying attention. So here's what you're gonna do. Two things you can do. The first thing is you are going to do a little bit of a teacher technique. Actually, both of these are teacher techniques, but the first one is instead of throwing a question out to the group and saying, can anybody tell me ba? What you're gonna say is, Robin, I would like you to tell me what ba 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 ba, and ask the question, right? I was thinking of Round Robin, and the name Robin came to my mind. This does two things. So first of all, Robin is now very much paying attention because you said their name, and now there's an expectation that they are listening and able to respond. But also, everybody else in your workshop is like, whoa, what? Brittni's gonna just like randomly call on us out of the blue? All of a sudden, they're all listening a lot more actively. I can promise you that. The second thing you can do is you can get someone to repeat back what you said, right? So you can say, hey, Alex, for this exercise, how many dots are we using? right? And then Alex is like 3 dots or whatever, right? So Alex was paying attention, hopefully, and if he wasn't, someone else was, and now everybody's like, okay, I really need to pay attention. And actually a third tip, a little bonus tip for if people aren't listening, something you can do with your language that helps people kind of like perk up is using insight statements. And insight statements are kind of like a verbal highlighter. It's something that you're gonna say that kind of signals to everybody that what I'm about to say is really super important and you should pay attention. So something like, the big idea with this exercise is, or the way to do this really well is, or the most important thing that you need to know is, blah. And once people hear the most important, the big idea, how to do this well, they're all of a sudden like, I want all of those things. Everybody wants to do things well. Everybody wants to know the best secret behind blah, blah, blah. So using that kind of language from time to time, not always, because they'll get used to it, but if you use it from time to time where you're like, I really need everybody to pay attention here, it helps a ton. Okay, what about somebody who is talking too much? I like to call this person the bulldozer. Either they are super happy and excited to be there, which is awesome, or they literally feel like they should probably be facilitating this session themselves. So they're kind of two of the same person, and you can deal with them in exactly the same way. My number one tip with this person is to give them something to do. So usually someone who like really likes to talk or likes to kind of take over just wants to be heard. They want to be part of the spotlight. So don't try to like minimize them and take that away from them. Give them that, right? And then they'll be satisfied and happy to be around. So for someone who really likes to talk, you can literally allow them to speak, right? Tell them, hey, can you actually go through these Post-its and read aloud what we have here? All of a sudden they're talking, they're happy, right? It's awesome. Another thing you can do if someone feels like they should be the one actually facilitating it, or you just get that feeling, you can give them a task of like, hey, can you pay attention to the timer for me? Can you kind of be my like co-facilitator? Give them little tasks, little rules to make them feel important. Usually people who really want to speak up and chime in a lot, they're just excited to be there. They want to be heard. So give them that. Don't kind of like try to take it away. You'll just end up fighting the whole time, and that's not fun. Okay, and the last situation I'm going to talk about is when someone is questioning your workshop, your process, the activity that you're doing. Basically, they think you're doing it wrong. Oof, this is such a crappy situation to be in. I hate it, but it's actually relatively easy to deal with. First of all, remain calm. Remember that this is not about you. This is actually just about them and an experience that they've had previously. So what you're gonna do, the very first thing, if someone's like, you know, I don't think we should be doing this workshop at all, this activity doesn't make any sense, whatever they're saying, you just ask them more questions about that. So you say, that's interesting. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? So why don't you think that this workshop is going to be very effective? Can you just tell me where you're coming from with that? All of a sudden they're like, well, and then they tell you more background information. Ask again, yeah, tell me more about that. So what was that experience like? They tell you more. All of a sudden you're at the root of the problem and you can respond accordingly. This is so, so key because people aren't actively trying to sabotage you just for the sake of it, right? There's something behind their actions, and that's just so important to remember. Then when you find out what their concern actually is, like the root of their concern, usually it's completely off topic or has nothing to do with what you're doing with the team. So what you're gonna do there is you're gonna use a little something that we like to call in the facilitator world, the parking lot. Now, the parking lot is something where you put ideas, questions, thoughts that aren't totally in scope of what you're working on right then and there with the team. It is the perfect way to, for lack of a better word, kind of like shut up the person who is trying to derail you. But you're gonna do it in a really nice way, and you're gonna be very respectful, and you are gonna come back to them about it. So basically what you're gonna do in a parking lot is you're gonna say, you know what you're talking about here is absolutely super important, and I'm glad that you brought that up. I am concerned that that is not completely in scope of what we're actually planning to do today, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write this down on a Post-it. I'm gonna write this down because I do wanna revisit this. I'm gonna put this in our parking lot, and at the end of the session or tomorrow or whatever next week, I'm gonna follow up with you about this because I do think we need to talk about this. So you have validated their concern, you've given them next steps, and literally there's nothing more that they can say because you've addressed it. The worst thing you can do is try to argue with them, say they're wrong, say, like trying to trying to convince them that this process is the right process, it's just not gonna work because they already have the idea that it's not right. So what you need to do is validate, give them next steps, and move on. If this person continues to be persistently disruptive, the thing that you're gonna do is you're gonna take them aside outside. If you're on remote, you're gonna message them privately and just say, hey, I just noticed that your disruptions seem to be holding us back a little bit, and I have a really big agenda for what I plan to do today with the team. I'm just concerned that if you keep kind of chiming in, we might not be able to achieve it. So is there anything that I can do, anything that would help you right now? Or do you feel like your time would be better used somewhere else? It's okay to dismiss someone from the workshop, right? You as a facilitator, it's your job to get the team from A to B. If you have to lose a person along the way, hey, that's just what has to be done, right? It's your job as a facilitator to guide the team and get them there. So you need to make those calls on what you need to do in order to be successful, right? It's a tough job. Nobody said it was an easy job. Actually, sometimes I do say it's an easy job, but it's not actually. It's not. Okay, I hope that was really helpful. My plan there was to give you very, very tangible tips on how you can deal with difficult situations in workshop or meeting context. I want to remind you before you leave that people generally are good. That's kind of what I choose to believe. So thinking that as you're going into a workshop scenario or as you're dealing with someone who's being difficult is a really good idea. It will serve you really well. Staying positive, not going into this negative space is really going to allow you to continue going. Remember that this is one person, not everyone. So don't let them kind of like ruin the whole experience for you. Keep in mind that their complaint or their concern or their question is coming from somewhere. So your goal is to find out where it's coming from so you can address it properly. Okay? Okay, if you liked this video, if you found it helpful, please give me a like on the video and subscribe if you're interested in more kind of topics like this. I'd also love to know, I know that like sometimes we're not allowed to share those kind of stories, but I love hearing facilitator horror stories because we all have them. If you've ever facilitated a meeting or a workshop, you have them. So put them in the comments, maybe just change the names so we don't get in trouble. How about that? Great. Otherwise, I hope you have a fan-freaking-tastic day, and I will see you soon on the internet or in real life, because you just never know. I'm not gonna stalk you. I won't. I swear. Okay. Toodaloo, everybody. Bye. Gordon, do you want to say hi? Let's see. This is Gordon. Gordon, look at the camera up there. Oh, there you go. Oh, he's the sweetest. He looks really big in the camera. He's not actually. You look like a giant dog, Gordon. He's not actually that big. Anyway. Okay, bye.